Hi, I'm Connie Burns. I work in the Youth Services Room at the Scarborough Public Library, and I'm back to continue reading The 100 Dresses by Eleanor Estes and published by Harcourt. I'm glad you joined us again. And maybe you did some thinking about the first couple of chapters, about how Peggy and Maddie and some of the other girls are playing 100 dresses game where they're teasing and making fun of Wanda Petronsky, a girl who wears the same dress to school every single day, but who says she has 100 dresses in her closet. Shall we keep reading? Chapter 3, A Bright Blue Day. Somehow Maddie could not buckle down to do work. She sharpened her pencil, turning it around carefully in the little red sharpener, letting the shavings fall in a neat heap on a piece of scrap paper, and trying not to get any of the dust from the lead on her clean arithmetic paper. A slight frown puckered her forehead. In the first place, she didn't like being late to school, and in the second place, she kept thinking about Wanda. Somehow Wanda's desk, though empty, seemed to be the only thing she saw when she looked over to that side of the room. How had the 100 Dresses game begun in the first place, she asked herself impatiently. It was hard to remember the time when they hadn't played that game with Wanda. Hard to think all the way back from now when the 100 Dresses was like the Daily Dozen, to then when everything seemed much nicer. Oh yes, she remembered. It had begun that day when Cecile first wore her new red dress. Suddenly the whole scene flashed swiftly and vividly before Maddie's eyes. It was a bright blue day in September. No, it must have been October, because when she and Peggy were coming to school, arms around each other and singing, Peggy had said, "You know what? This must be the kind of day they mean when they say October's bright blue weather." Maddie remembered that because afterwards it didn't seem like bright blue weather anymore, although the weather had not changed in the slightest. As they turned from shady Oliver Street into Maple, they both blinked. For now the morning sun shone straight in their eyes. Besides that, the bright flashes of color came from a group of a half dozen or more girls across the street. Their sweaters and jackets and dresses, blues and golds and reds, and one crimson one in particular, caught the sun's rays like bright pieces of glass. A crisp, fresh wind was blowing, swishing their skirts and blowing their hair in their eyes. The girls were all exclaiming and shouting, and each one was trying to talk louder than the others. Maddie and Peggy joined the group and the laughing and the talking. "Hi, Peg. Hi, Maddie," they were greeted warmly. "Look at Cecile." What they were all exclaiming about was the dress that Cecile had on, a crimson dress with cap and socks to match. It was a bright new dress and very pretty. Everyone was admiring it and admiring Cecile. For long, slender Cecile was a toe dancer and wore fancier clothes than most of them. And she had her black satin bag with her precious white satin ballet slippers slung over her shoulders. Today was the day for her dancing lesson. Maddie sat down on the granite curbstone to tie her shoelaces. She listened happily to what they were saying. They all seemed especially jolly today, probably because it was such a bright blue day. Everything sparkled. Way down at the end of the street, the sun shimmered and turned to silver the blue water of the bay. Maddie picked up a piece of broken mirror and flashed a small circle of light edged with rainbow colors onto the houses, the trees, and the top of the telegraph pole. And it was then that Wanda came along with her brother Jake. They didn't often come to school together. Jake had to get to school very early because he helped old Mr. Heaney, the school janitor, with the furnace or raking up the dry leaves or other odd jobs before school opened. Today, Jake must be late. Even Wanda looked pretty in the sunshine, and her pale blue dress looked like a piece of the sky in summer, and that old gray toboggan cap she wore, it must be something Jake had found, looked almost jaunty. Maddie watched them absent-mindedly as she flashed her piece of broken mirror here and there, and only absent-mindedly she noticed Wanda stop short when they reached the crowd of laughing and shouting girls. "Come on," Maddie heard Jake say. "I gotta hurry. I gotta get the doors open and ring the bell." "You go the rest of the way," said Wanda to her brother. "I want to stay here." Jake shrugged and went on up Maple Street. Wanda slowly approached the group of girls. With each step forward, before she put her foot down, she seemed to hesitate for a long, long time. She approached the group as a timid animal might, ready to run if anything alarmed it. Even so, Wanda's mouth was twisted into the vaguest suggestion of a smile. She must feel happy too, because everybody must feel happy on such a day. As Wanda joined the outside fringe of girls, Maddie stood up too and went over close to Peggy to get a good look at Cecile's new dress. She forgot about Wanda, and more girls kept coming up, enlarging the group and all exclaiming about Cecile's new dress. "Isn't it lovely?" said one. "Yeah, I have a new blue dress, but it's not as pretty as that," said another. "My mother just brought me a plaid, one of the Stewart plaids." And here are the girls gathering at the corner with their new dresses. I could see Cecile's crimson dress right on the corner. "I got a new dress for dancing school," said another. "I'm going to make my mother get me one, just like Cecile's." Everyone was talking to everybody else. Nobody said anything to Wanda, but there she was, a part of the crowd. The girls closed in a tighter circle around Cecile, still talking all at once and admiring her, and Wanda was somehow enveloped in the group. Nobody talked to Wanda, but nobody even thought about her being there. Maybe, thought Maddie, remembering what had happened next, maybe she figured all she'd have to do was say something and she'd really be one of the girls. And this would be an easy thing to do because all they were doing was talking about dresses. Maddie was standing next to Peggy. Wanda was standing next to Peggy on the other side. All of a sudden, Wanda impulsively touched Peggy's arm and said something. Her light blue eyes were shining, and she looked excited like the rest of the girls. "What?" asked Peggy, for Wanda had spoken softly to her. Wanda hesitated a moment, and then she repeated her words firmly. "I got 100 dresses home." "That's what I thought you said, 100 dresses. 100? Peggy's voice rose itself higher and higher. "Hey kids," she yelled, "this girl's got 100 dresses." Silence greeted this, and the crowd, which had centered around Cecile and her new finery, now centered curiously around Wanda and Peggy. The girls eyed Wanda, first incredulously, then suspiciously. 100 dresses, they said? Nobody could have 100 dresses. "I have, though." "Wanda has 100 dresses. Where are they, then?" "In my closet." "Oh, you don't wear them to school?" "No, for parties." "Oh, you mean you don't have any everyday dresses?" "Yes, I have all kinds of dresses." "Why don't you wear them to school?" For a moment, Wanda was silenced to this. Her lips drew together. Then she repeated stolidly, as though it was a lesson learned in school. 100 of them, all lined up in my closet." "Oh, I see," said Peggy, talking like a grown-up person. "The child has 100 dresses, but she won't wear them to school. Perhaps she's worried of getting ink or chalk on them." With this, everybody fell to laughing and talking at once. Wanda looked stolidly at them, putting her lips together, wrinkling her forehead up so that the gray toboggan slid way down on her brow. Suddenly, from down the street, the school gong rang its first warning. "Oh, come on, hurry," said Maddie, relieved. "We'll be late." "Goodbye, Wanda," said Peggy. "Your 100 dresses sound beautiful." More shouts of laughter greeted this, and off the girls ran, laughing and talking and forgetting Wanda and her 100 dresses, forgetting until tomorrow and the next day and the next, when Peggy, seeing her coming to school, would remember and ask her about the 100 dresses. For now, Peggy seemed to think a day was lost if she had not had some fun with Wanda, winning the approving laughter of the girls. Yes, that was the way it had begun, the game of 100 dresses. It all happened so suddenly and unexpectedly, with everybody falling right in, that even if you felt uncomfortable, as Maddie had, there wasn't anything you could do about it. Maddie wagged her head up and down. Yes, she repeated to herself, that was the way it began, that day, that bright blue day. And she wrapped up her shavings and went to the front of the room to empty them into the teacher's basket. The contest. Now today, even though she and Peggy had been late to school, Maddie was glad she had not had to make fun of Wanda. She worked her arithmetic problems absent-mindedly. 8 times 8. Let's see. Nothing she could do about making fun of Wanda. She wished she had the nerve to write Peggy a note, because she knew she'd never have the courage to speak right out to Peggy to say, "Hey, Peg, let's stop asking Wanda about how many dresses she has." When she finished her arithmetic, Maddie did start a note to Peggy. Suddenly she paused and shuddered. She pictured herself in the schoolyard, a new target for Peggy and the girls. Peggy might ask her where she got the dress she had on, and Maddie would have to say that it wasn't one of Peggy's old ones that Maddie's mother had tried to disguise with new trimmings so that no one in room 13 would recognize it. If only Peggy would decide on her own accord to stop having fun with Wanda. Oh well. Maddie ran her hand through her short blonde hair, as though to push the uncomfortable thoughts away. What difference did it make? Slowly, Maddie tore the note that she had started into bits. She was Peggy's best friend, and Peggy was the best liked girl in the whole room. Peggy could not possibly do anything that was really wrong, she thought. As for Wanda, she was just some girl who lived up on Bargains Heights and stood alone in the schoolyard. Nobody in the room thought about Wanda at all, except when it was her turn to stand up for oral reading. Then they all hoped she would hurry up and finish and sit down, because it took her forever to read a paragraph. Sometimes she stood up and just looked at the book and couldn't or wouldn't read at all. The teacher tried to help her, but she'd just stand there until the teacher told her to sit down. Was she dumb or what? And there's Wanda, standing up, supposed to read. Maybe she was just timid. The only time she talked was in the schoolyard about her 100 dresses. Maddie remembered her telling about one of her dresses, a pale blue one with cerise-colored trimmings. And she remembered another that was brilliant jungle green with a red sash. "You look like a Christmas tree in that," the girls had said in pretended admiration. Thinking about Wanda and her 100 dresses all lined up in her closet, Maddie began to wonder who was going to win the drawing and coloring contest. For girls, this contest consisted of designing dresses, and for boys, of designing motorboats. Probably Peggy would win the girls' medal. Peggy drew better than anyone else in the room. At least that's what everybody thought. You should see the way she could copy a picture from a magazine or some movie star's head. You could almost tell who it was. Oh, Maggie did hope Peggy would win. Hope so. She was sure Peggy would win. Well, tomorrow, the teacher was going to announce the winners. Then they'd know. Thoughts of Wanda sank further and further from Maddie's mind, and by the time the history lesson began, she had forgotten all about her. The next chapter is called The 100 Dresses. The next day it was drizzling. There were the girls walking to school under an umbrella. Peggy and Maddie hurried to school under Peggy's umbrella. Naturally, on a day like this, they didn't wait for Wanda Petronsky on the corner of Oliver Street, the street that far, far away under the railroad tracks and up the hill led to Bargains Heights. Anyway, they weren't taking chances on being late today, because today was important. "Do you think Miss Mason will announce the winners today?" asked Peggy. "Oh, I hope so. The minute we get in," said Maddie, and added, "Of course you'll win, Peg." Hope so, said Peggy eagerly. The minute they entered the classroom, they stopped short and gasped. There were drawings all over the room, on every ledge and windowsill, tacked to the tops of the blackboards, spread over the bird charts, dazzling colors, brilliant lavish designs, all drawn on great sheets of wrapping paper. There must have been 100 of them, all lined up. These must be the drawings for the contest. Can you see all those beautiful dresses? They were the drawings for the contest. Everybody stopped and whistled or murmured admiringly. As soon as the class had assembled, Miss Mason announced the winners. Jack Beggles had won for the boys, she said, and his design of an outboard motorboat was on exhibition in room 12, along with the sketches by all the other boys. As for the girls, she said, although just 1 or 2 sketches were submitted by most, one girl in room 13 should be very proud of her. This one girl actually drew 100 designs, all different and all beautiful. In the opinion of the judges, any one of her drawings is worthy of winning the prize. I am happy to say that Wanda Petronsky is the winner of the girls' medal. Unfortunately, Wanda has been absent from school for some days and is not here to receive the applause that is due her. Let's hope she'll be back tomorrow. Now, class, you may file around the room quietly and look at her exquisite drawings. The children burst into applause, and even the boys were glad to have a chance to stamp on the floor, put their fingers in their mouths, and whistle, though they were not interested in dresses. Peggy and Maddie were among the first to reach the blackboard to look at the drawings. Look, Peg, whispered Maddie. That's that blue one she told us about. Isn't it beautiful? Yes, said Peggy, and here's that green one. Boy, and I thought I could draw. While the class was circling the room, the monitor from the principal's office brought Miss Mason a note. Miss Mason read it several times and studied it thoughtfully for a while. Then she clapped her hands and said, "Attention, class, everyone back to his seat." When the shuffling of feet had stopped and the room was still and quiet, Miss Mason said, "I have a letter from Wanda's father that I want to read to you." Miss Mason stood there a moment, and the silence in the room grew tense and expectant. The teacher adjusted her glasses slowly and deliberately. Her manner indicated that what was coming, this letter from Wanda's father, was a matter of great importance. Everybody listened closely as Miss Mason read the brief note. Dear teacher, my Wanda will not come to your school anymore. Jake also. Now we move away to big city. No more holler Pollock. No more ask why funny name. Plenty of funny names in the big city. Yours truly, Jan Petronsky. A deep silence met the reading of this letter. Miss Mason took her glasses off, blew on them, and wiped them on the soft white handkerchief. Then she put them on again and looked at the class. When she spoke, her voice was very low. I am sure none of my boys and girls in room 13 would purposely and deliberately hurt anyone's feeling because his name or her name happened to be a long, unfamiliar one. I prefer to think that what was said in thoughtlessness. I know that all of you feel the way I do, that this is a very unfortunate thing to have happened. Unfortunate and sad, both. And I want you all to think about it. The first period was a study period. Maddie tried to prepare her lessons, but she could not put her mind on her work. She had a very sick feeling in the bottom of her stomach. True, she had not enjoyed listening to Peggy ask Wanda how many dresses she had in her closet, but she had said nothing. She had stood by silently, and that was just as bad as what Peggy had done. Worse, she was a coward. At least Peggy hadn't considered they were being mean, but she, Maddie, had thought they were doing wrong. She had thought, supposing she was the one being made fun of, she could put herself in Wanda's shoes, but she had done just as much as Peggy to make life miserable for Wanda by simply standing by and saying nothing. She had helped to make someone so unhappy that they had had to move away from town. Goodness! Wasn't there anything she could do? If only she could tell Wanda she hadn't meant to hurt her feelings. She turned around and stole a glance at Peggy, but Peggy did not look up. She seemed to be studying hard. Well, whether Peggy felt badly or not, she, Maddie, had to do something. She had to find Wanda Petronsky. Maybe she hadn't moved away yet. Maybe Peggy would climb the heights with her and they could tell Wanda that she had won the contest and that they thought she was smart and that the 100 dresses were beautiful. When school was dismissed in the afternoon, Peggy said with pretended casualness, "Hey, let's go and see if that kid has left town or not." So Peggy had had the same idea as Maddie had had. Maddie glowed. Peggy was really all right. Just as she always thought, Peg was really all right. She was okay. My goodness, that's a kind of a sad thing, isn't it? We will have one more time reading together, and I'm looking forward to it, but I want to leave you with some questions to be thinking about. Was Wanda really different from the other girls? Why do you think Maddie was afraid to speak to Peggy about her feelings and about how she felt about their making fun of Wanda? Why didn't Maddie say anything? And what was the effect of her being silent and quiet? How do you think Peggy and Maddie felt when they saw those drawings, those beautiful dresses on the wall? Why did Wanda move away? Are Peggy and Maddie friends? And here's a big one to think about. What is a friend? Is a friend who's someone you see all the time, someone you talk to a lot, someone you share all your thoughts with, somebody you trust, someone you share toys with, someone who always agrees with you, someone who's always nice to you? What is it that makes someone a true friend? I can't wait to see you, my friends, again when we finish our book together. I'll see you next time, and we'll keep reading The 100 Dresses by Eleanor Estes. I'm Connie Burns, and I work at the Scarborough Public Library.